I think that, stats are an important part, but you also have to be aware of like confirming your own bias. I mean, Frank Lampard said it in a recent press conference when he attacked a journalist for using statistics, and he was like, it's confirmation bias. So it means you're like looking at the statistics and trying to confirm what you already believe, but you should be ready. You should go into statistics open-minded to change your mind. You might think, oh, this player, he doesn't run hard, he doesn't tackle much, and you look at the statistics, you're like, wow, actually maybe it's me that's actually looking at this wrong. Sometimes you look at a football match and you just don't take a liking to a player because of his body language. It's a strange like phenomenon. So, and it does help actually when you're in the stadium, you get more of a connection to it. So that's why I think it's quite important for, as reporters, go into the stadium to watch the game when you're reporting on them as well, like not just being watching from TV, because with the pandemic, I've been watching some of the away games on TV, and it's fine, you can do your job, but it's not the same as being there really, and that really gives you, a connection to football, like connection to the moments in the match and things like that. You feel the importance of a tackle even, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, if you've played football, you get that kind of vibe. You know who's had a good game when you're near the field.
The VAR Show. The one place for your weekly football update.
So hello, a very warm welcome to the VAR Show, the show which talks about all the various major football leagues in detail. Today we are going to conduct him division. We have Mr. Nizaar Kinsella with us, who is Chelsea correspondent for Goal and has covered Chelsea and other aspects of the club and football extensively all over UK and all over Europe, to be uh, precise. And so without wasting much time, I would like to first thank Nizaar for coming on the show. Thank you and welcome to the show. And I would like to begin by asking you, how are you and what have you been doing? Like how has it been for you, this pandemic, which probably is almost a year, more than a year now? How has it been for you?
Yeah, it's been okay. It's been fine. I mean, it's been a tiring week this week with the Chelsea news, but in general, the pandemic, I've been lucky because I get to watch football live, and not many people can, So I'm allowed in the stadiums. I've been to matches without the crowd. It's not the same. It's not as good, but I'm still very lucky that I get to see these world-class athletes, in the Premier League, competing for titles, competing for top 4 places, fighting relegation, all these drama that we see. So for me, I'm one of the lucky ones who gets a bit of live entertainment. I've enjoyed that part of my life. I've traveled a little bit around the UK. Actually, 2020 is the first year where I never left the country to watch a football match. Usually I leave and see a match with Chelsea in Europe or something like this, but I didn't get the opportunity. Although just before the pandemic hit, I did go to Brazil on holiday and went to the Maracanã Stadium, the very famous football stadium, and watched a game there. So I did tick off one, big dream of mine. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been a bit of a strange time for everyone, hasn't it? And a difficult time. But I think football has been really important for me personally. It's kept me sane, kept me happy, and I think a lot of people feel the same way.
And which game did you watch at the Maracanã?
I watched Fluminense against Botafogo, 2 Rio de Janeiro teams. It's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, I would recommend it. A very big stadium, though. So yeah, I think in Brazil they struggle to fill a stadium. It's almost too big.
Definitely. So I'll like you have been covering, you have been in this in the media industry for a while now, and probably this is the first time you would have come across such a situation where probably you have the pandemic, which probably it has not happened for quite a while, or any such incident, and probably hopefully then happen again for a while. How has it been for you? Like because you, as a part of the industry, even if the football had stopped, you had to continue to work. You had to produce something for people to go to, because now you had more audience who could access you probably during the lockdown. So how was it more hectic for you back then?
It was kind of more hectic. Probably the scariest part was right at the start of the pandemic when football completely stopped. There was no continuation, and you're like, "What are we going to write about?" And everyone's kind of bored and looking on their phones and a little bit stressed. So, I changed my job a little bit from being a football reporter to a news reporter, writing about what the issues were with the pandemic, how it's affected people in football. And there's lots of stories, but not very, fun Chelsea stories. Usually, football is an industry where you celebrate superheroes. Kevin De Bruyne is a superhero, Eden Hazard's a superhero. So yeah, it was more of a news reporter job for a little while. But when the football came back, I was back to my flow. The entertainment side of it came up again, and all this. So it was that was probably the most difficult period for me. And I was leaning on all of my contacts, trying to get interviews, trying to provide interviews about the past to try and distract people and keep people positive and things like that. So that's how I use my reporting. But yeah, when the games came back, it's not the same. Usually you go to the stadium and it's all packed on the train. The London Underground, if anyone's ever been on it, is like just so busy for the games, and you're just like squashed up against people, all in Chelsea shirts and things like this. So yeah, it's different. And when you're in the match as well, it's very strange. The first match I went to was actually the one where Liverpool won the league. It's Chelsea beat Man City, and then by beating Man City, it confirmed Liverpool as the champions of England. And it was a big event, but it didn't feel like such a big event. There was nobody in the stadium singing, mocking each other and all this. So yeah, and we found, like, as time goes on as well, like, your reporting, you don't really realize it, but your reporting is really influenced by the crowd. So like, you can hear the reactions to things, and it gives you that emotional connection a bit extra. So you do lose that. And I think the time we lost it the most was when Frank Lampard was sacked from Chelsea, because he's got such an emotional connection for Chelsea fans, legend, and all this. And he feels, that if the fans were in the stadium, he might have done a better job, because he had that and he could push the team on a little bit. And when there were hard times, fans like Chelsea fans sometimes really get behind the team and push them through the hard times. So yeah, we didn't have that as reporters, as players, as the manager. And maybe that influenced the events. It must have done. Social media takes more prominence in these times because we find connections now through WhatsApp, Zoom, as we're doing right now, and a few other platforms. So yeah, it's been a strange time for sure.
Definitely, and we'll touch on maybe Frank later on in this interview. And I wanted to ask, like, on a personal note, how did you get into this media industry?
Yeah, I was. I studied it at university. My dad's a really good writer, and I'm. My first name's named after a poet from the Arab world, actually. So, I guess maybe it was my destiny to do some writing or something at some point. But, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was older. Really, I wanted to be a rock star or a footballer, but I didn't achieve either of those goals. So I was like, what next? And I was like, oh, being a journalist sounds cool. I actually didn't want to be a sports reporter. I wanted to be like a news reporter who would change the world and this kind of thing. But yeah, it is quite tough. It's in the UK. I'm sure same where you are as well. It's very competitive industry. People are fighting over every job, like 100 applicants for a job and things like this. So you just kind of take any job. I was working on BBC Radio, but on late nights. So I'd work really, really bad hours. I'd sleep in the day and work in the night at first, and then I worked for a charity doing media communications for them, and then a newspaper, which was a really stressful job, really horrible time as well, when I was doing news, celebrity and sport, and the UK was being hit by a bit of a wave of terrorism and things like this. So it's quite a horrible time, and I was like, I need a break from this. I want to go like into football fully, and just applied for a job and got it, and it's the goal.com Chelsea reporter's job. So yeah, I live in London, and I thought that it'd be a cool job. I just wanted to do something that was a bit fun. I thought I deserved it after doing some hard jobs and things like that. So yeah, and I also would say that if anyone wants to get into the industry, especially, I think it's relevant everywhere. I mean, the media is the same now, is like, make sure you can create things. Like, anyone can create things, TikTok videos, podcasts. If you can do that on your own back, it really impresses employers. And the other thing is, learn as many skills as possible. Like, I can edit video, shoot video, and write. So it's not just like I've got one string to my bow. I mean, in the olden days, you just have a specialist reporter who's a video guy, but now reporters do everything. So if you can do a bit of everything, that'll take you a long way. So yeah, that's kind of how I approach my career, and I think it really helped me.
Like talking about reporting, like these days you have like former pros coming in form of various media, and they get some different insights to the game probably, which, like you said, back in the days reporters would not probably find out. Maybe like something as small as maybe XG, which probably now everyone is familiar with, probably which was not familiar with back in the days. So how do you as a reporter, or like as a when you do podcast or whatever, how do you prepare yourself with statistics or things, or do you think that is necessary for anyone who wants to come into this world?
Yeah, statistics are definitely increasingly important. It's quite interesting where it comes from. I think it started really with the baseball in America. They're really statistics obsessed, and it's more of a measurable game. But yeah, I think that it's really sort of spread around the American sports, and now it's come to the Premier League and football in general and things like that. So yeah, it's really advanced, and it's interesting because you'd have that kind of data as a when you work for the team, but now it's available to the media and stuff. And I think, I try to use it as really important, an objective fact to use in my reporting. I think it's another element, another string to your bow if you can add that there, and it just gives you more authority. I think as a reporter, especially in football, you're always looking for more authority. There's lots of different ways to look at the game, and I think that stats are an important part, but you also have to be aware of like confirming your own bias. I mean, Frank Lampard said it in a recent press conference when he attacked a journalist for using statistics, and he was like, it's confirmation bias. So it means you're like looking at the statistics and trying to confirm what you already believe, but you should be ready. You should go into statistics open-minded to change your mind. You might think, oh, this player, he doesn't run hard, he doesn't tackle much, and you look at the statistics, you're like, wow, actually it's me that's actually looking at this wrong. Sometimes you look at a football match and you just don't take a liking to a player because of his body language. It's a strange like phenomenon. So, and it does help actually when you're in the stadium, you get more of a connection to it. So that's why I think it's quite important for as reporters go into the stadium to watch the game when you're reporting on them as well, like not just being watching from TV, because with the pandemic I've been watching some of the away games on TV, and it's fine, you can do your job, but it's not the same as being there really, and that really gives you a connection to football, like connection to the moments in the match and things like that. You feel the importance of a tackle even, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, if you've played football, you get that kind of vibe. Who's had a good game when you're near the field.
Definitely. And talking of Chelsea, they have had a turbulent season. Like beginning of the season, they were flying high, and even like many of them even said that they might even be the challengers to Liverpool, which now looks okay. It's not. Both of them are not nearby at least. And then everything has gone kind of downwards for them. What has happened to them? What really happened? Because it looked like they will be challenging for the title.
Yeah, it's been 6 weeks of sort of hell for Chelsea. The king has left the building, and Frank Lampard's gone. They were top of the league when they beat Leeds United in early December. It's not that long ago, 6 weeks or so. Now they've got a new manager. It's just incredible, really, how quickly things can turn in football, especially at Chelsea, where the owner doesn't really have much patience and things like this. And I think we really saw an example of his ruthlessness. But yeah, where it went wrong, I think that sort of Chelsea were overinflated at the start of the season. I think they were on a little bit of a run, and people maybe expected too much of them. I think Timo Werner maybe isn't quite the striker we thought he was yet. I think he's still got another level of development to go. There's no really truly world-class players at Chelsea except for N'Golo Kante and maybe Thiago Silva. For me, a lot of those players who I think are really good, don't get me wrong, great, some of the best young players in the world, but they're not up at that level. They're not like Bayern Munich players or Liverpool players for that matter. So yeah, I think that was part of it. 220 million spent isn't a guarantee, but like to dip so far, like that's the problem. They just really dipped. Some of the results were embarrassing. The Arsenal result 3-0, Man City 3-1. It doesn't look as bad on paper as it was, but when you're in the stadium or watching on TV, I'm sure all Chelsea fans will agree, it was so one-sided. It 3-1 flattered Chelsea, and the 2-0 Leicester flattered Chelsea as well, because Leicester just dominated. And And Chelsea shouldn't be struggling against teams like Leicester. They beat West Ham 3-0 as well, and they were so poor against West Ham. I can't believe it ended 3-0. It should have been 1-0 to West Ham or something like that. But that Chelsea do have good finishes at the end of the pitch, so they got away with that one. But Frank Lampard's coaching wasn't seem to be working. It didn't seem to resonate with the players anymore. I think that he had a lot of problems with the size of the dressing room. It's a very big squad. He had 3 left backs, 5 centre backs, a £71 million goalkeeper as a backup. It's too much talent on the bench. It's too much talent who can disrupt things. I think that was a problem. I think that not having Timo Werner and Kai Havertz in form reflected really badly on him as well, to the ownership. They were looking at it thinking, Havertz is playing number 8, it's not his position, and Werner has just stopped scoring because Lampard can't get him on the right parts of the pitch. So, yeah, I think that was a frustration, and Frank didn't find the solutions, and I think his arguments grew tired. He's blaming the players a lot for his own shortcomings, and in the end, I think maybe it was a bit soon, but it wasn't the worst decision to remove him from the job. And I know it's a difficult thing for Chelsea fans to hear because he's an icon, and it's caused a lot of anger and things like that. But I think that the fact that it was just getting worse and worse every week. Like, Chelsea were getting worse and worse. I mean, Fulham really helped them by getting a man sent off. Like, Chelsea were poor against Fulham, and they won that game, but it was only because one Fulham player made a crazy tackle. So they were getting worse and worse every game. You could see it. The points per game was going down. They were only looking like they were going to struggle to qualify for the Europa League, and that's the way I felt from watching on. And you were hearing that Thomas Tuchel was trying to get Frank's job. And he got it in the end. I think the agent of Thomas Tuchel was trying to make sure that his guy was chosen, and Thomas really wanted the job, and he got the job. And yeah, that's what happened. But in the end, only one person makes a decision. That's Roman Abramovich, and he will have instructed Marina Granovskaya, the club's director, to get rid of Frank. He looked at the data. He said, Chelsea just going backwards. The season's still alive for Chelsea. They're only 5 points behind Liverpool at the time they sacked Lampard, but they were like, if we're not going to get above these teams if we have Lampard as manager. So they were like, Tuchel's on the market, he's good, let's get him in.
Do you think, like, personally for Lampard, was this job too soon for him?
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, no other manager in his situation from the Championship, from Derby County, would go straight to Chelsea. So that's obviously a big alarm bell. You're thinking maybe his status as a club legend will fix some of that gap, but it didn't. I think we've seen it where Pep Guardiola came into Barcelona with not much experience, but he did an amazing job. And I think a lot of these clubs are looking for the same story, that same beautiful story, but thing is, Guardiola is a special case, and it's not so easy to replicate. So yeah, I mean, I think maybe he lacked the experience really, and also, like, his assistant coach was like more experienced than him. He had Jody Morris in there, and a lot of the interesting tactical stuff was delegated to him. He had more knowledge, more experience of working in dressing rooms and things like that. So Frank only had 1 year of experience in management. It's not enough probably, and it did show in the end. A lot of people have speculated that maybe in 10 years he can come back or something like that. And I don't think, I think Chelsea fans would be open to the idea if he could prove himself again, rise back to the top through other clubs. And I think that's the plan for Frank. I think he's going to take a few months out of the game and then come back to it, maybe in the summer, and see what job he can get. I mean, I'm fancying him to replace Roy Hodgson at Crystal Palace or something like that. I could see that sort of job appealing to him, and seeing where if he can bounce back in his career. Yeah, I think that, Chelsea experience has been good for him. It will help him in the long term, but it was probably too soon as well. It's a ruthless club. I think he's left Chelsea in a better position than it was, though. I mean, they've got a young squad now. He got rid of some of the deadwood. He got over the transfer ban. The new signings, I think a lot of people still believe they're really good, and I kind of believe that as well. So, yeah, I think Chelsea are in a good position for the future, and Frank, deserves some credit too.
And maybe this is just the general misconception, or maybe it might be true. Like, the general theme is that if Timo Werner and Kai Havertz would have fired, then maybe Lampard would not have got sacked, because they would have got. Do you think, like, the spending or overspending in the summer, maybe to make up for the last year's ban, Do you think that got Lampard the sack? Because he had, like you mentioned already, he had a huge squad, and a huge, expensive or talents on the bench. Do you think that kind of made the sacking more imminent than probably would not have been?
Yeah, I think when you sign players and you don't get rid of players, that's a big problem. It was already a big enough squad. Maybe you got one to replace Willian, who left on a free, and Pedro, but then there's still like 4 extra guys coming into a squad who are probably going to start every game as well. So it's a bit of a mess the way it was dealt with. But I think the pandemic actually really hurt Chelsea in trying to sell players, but still it left Frank with such a difficult situation. And I think that he wanted to be listened to a little bit more and wanted to be understood that it was a difficult situation. And I think, Chelsea's decision to get rid of Frank will really be proven right or wrong by how well Tuchel does. I mean, if Tuchel takes Chelsea back up the league, then yeah, fine. Nobody's going to complain. But if at the end of the season they finish 7th, then people are going to be like, well, you might as well have just kept with Frank, you know what I mean? So I think that's where we're going to end up really in the next few months, and it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But I think, yeah, a lot of people said that about the squad. I think the signings are good, but you've got to move players on. And they also needed time as well. There's no pre-season, things like that, which is another, excuse Frank used. But I think it did really hurt, some of the players. And Kai Havertz had COVID as well. So he's really suffered physically after that as well. And we're only just about seeing him get back better now. And Tuchel's probably going to profit from that when he plays well.
And talking of Tuchel, like of course you would have come across him when Chelsea played maybe PSG in the past, and before that Dortmund. But up close now, you have attended his, I think, press conference. I think it was yesterday, like you said, Thursday. What do you make of him? What is his first impression on you?
No, he was great on his press conference. He was so smiley, happy. He's really projected a air of confidence and happiness and gratefulness to be given the job, and I think that went down really well. But he's also really funny. He was cracking jokes. I think I'm going to write a funny piece about him after we finish talking. So yeah, I mean, he made me laugh 4 times during a press conference, which was a bit of a change of mood from Frank Lampard, where it was getting a bit depressing, you're feeling sorry for him and things like that. So maybe that will give Chelsea a little bit of a lift and help them. But yeah, I think he's come across really well. And what's interesting as well is the tactical detail. He knew everyone in the squad. He was talking about Kai Havertz, Timo Werner and Pulisic, maybe players you'd expect him to know. But he was also talking about Billy Gilmour in great detail. He knew everything about him. So I really was impressed with that. And he sort of made a bit of a crazy tactical decision in the Wolves game after only being, in the job for 24 hours. So it shows probably what we're going to expect from him, which is versatile tactics that keep changing every week. But Callum Hudson-Odoi playing right wing back, where he's barely ever played in his career, was pretty cool as well. So there's going to be a lot to get your head around with him. He's quite an exciting manager. I think he's very likable. I like him. You just, when you meet somebody, sometimes you just like them straight away. And I got that feeling with Tuchel, and I think that'll help him. And yeah, I think I think everyone, not just me, but I think the whole UK media was so impressed with him.
And what is your personal opinion or expectations from him? Do you see Chelsea challenging for the title next season, or is this season also something expected from him?
I think it is expected that he challenges for the title. Maybe not wins it, but gets close. Tries to cause some problems, make sure people are talking about Chelsea in a positive way. I think that's the goal, and then win some cups as well. So I think he's admitted the expectations are very high. He's kind of inherited Lampard's expectations. I think maybe this season it's taken a bit of a backward step because Chelsea were expected to compete for the title this season. It's not really happened after December. So I think the expectation now is to try and get in the top 4, see how he does with that, improve the team, and that'll be enough. But next season, yeah, compete. He wants to win, and he knows that Chelsea doesn't give you much time, but I think he's at peace with that. Some managers, they kid themselves, they want to be at Chelsea forever. But if we're honest, they will sack a manager very easily. Even a legend like Jose Mourinho, I mean, no one's immune from Chelsea, and yeah, they're very impatient. So I think that he's at peace with that. He wants to win as many trophies before he gets chopped, and it doesn't hurt your reputation being sacked by Chelsea anyway. So Frank Lampard should bounce back, but certainly a manager like Tuchel, who's got PSG and Dortmund on his CV, and now adds Chelsea, should be fine for future big jobs.
Definitely. And for me personally, like at this juncture at which Chelsea are right now, they resemble the time when they had KDB and Salah and Lukaku on the books, like a oversized squad. Do you see like something like that again happening? Because you have a lot of players who probably won't get to play, Havertz, and like everyone, it's a business and you need to like make up the money if they're not performing. Do you see them going out or being sold if they don't perform this season? Or maybe this season you can write it off because you have a change in manager, but maybe next season.
Yeah, you're right. I think that it does resemble that time, and you could see big players leaving Chelsea, one or two anyway. It's just, some people will win and some people lose. That's what I always say. And Chelsea just stockpile talent, and also the FIFA rules are limiting the numbers of loanees you're allowed out now. So for next season, you're not going to be allowed so many as Chelsea have always had. So lots of players will be sold, and that's kind of exciting for Chelsea because I guess it gives them if they can sell them for an okay fee, they can go and spend loads of money in the transfer market, which will be a lot of fun again. And I expect them to spend really big in the next 2 seasons under Tuchel. I think they're fed up of seeing Chelsea fighting for fourth, and they want to fight for more. So yeah, I mean, it could also see that the fans getting annoyed about players being sold. We've also already seen Fikayo Tomori go on loan to AC Milan, and a lot of fans like him, and he is a really good defender. But they've just let him go, sort of thing. And there's an option to buy for 25 million, which isn't the highest fee. So Milan could reach it. They could get quite a good deal on a exciting English defender, who they could sell back to English football in a few years and maybe make a profit as well. So they could do some good business there, Milan. So I think that the door's open for a few to leave, even players that maybe Chelsea, wouldn't necessarily like to lose. But hey, when you have that many players, somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people are predicting Mason Mount will lose to Kai Havertz now because the German manager's in, but we don't know that yet. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm still backing Mount to really have a great career at Chelsea myself. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be the foreign players will now win and the English players will lose. As a whole, I think it's going to be more complicated than that.
Definitely. And like you spoke on the loan army that Chelsea have right now, and you have likes of Danny Drinkwater in Turkey right now, I think. And are there any young talents who are probably on the fringes of the first team and about to break into, or is that chapter closed with Lampard leaving? You would find any more young talents breaking in?
I think the chapter is closing a little bit, and it's not because Lampard's left. And I think Tuchel used to be youth coach, and he's got a great track record of bringing through players like Christian Pulisic at Dortmund and many, many others. But the problem is that the pressure's so high in Chelsea now, and they're setting the bar even higher and higher every year to try and get back to the top. That it's going to be hard to risk playing a youngster in the team. So there's a lot of great youngsters, at Chelsea. In the next generation, we've already seen Mount, Abraham, Reece James, that generation. Hudson-Odoi, I think he's unbelievable. He's going to be so good. I'm really backing him to be a great player. But beyond that, I think there's Tino Angeron's great. He's in the academy now. He's been training with the first team. I think he's been performing really well in training, actually. Quite unlucky not to play more. There's Conor Gallagher on loan. He's at West Brom in a very bad team, but he's a really good player, and I think that under Lampard he would have probably made it, but now there's a bit more doubt there. What are they going to do with him now? He's got a long contract as well, so it'll be interesting if he just stays on loan all the time, or if Chelsea can use him. And he's a box-to-box midfielder, really energetic. And Ethan Ampadu as well. He's at Sheffield United. He's in Wales international, and he's I'm still backing him to do really well. He's played at Leipzig as well, which might help him with Tuchel in the future. And he's a really tough tackling, technical midfielder, but he's got great energy about him and great physicality as well. He's pretty much a complete player. He's definitely going to be a top player eventually in his career. He's probably not quite had the best loan moves, Leipzig he was on the bench all the time, and Sheffield United he's struggling in a team that barely wins any games, but he played really well against Man United in midweek. So he's got great prospects about him. So those are the guys really. I think that it's just going to be hard as well because the age of the squad's so young. So any midfielder now is competing with Mason Mount and Kai Havertz, who are going to be at the club for 3, 4, 5 years, and you've got that same problem across all different positions. So yeah, I think that's going to be the problem really. A lot of them will leave. A lot of them will be like Tariq Lamptey, who has gone to Brighton and become an absolute top player, and now other big clubs are looking at signing him.
And like you said, there's a change in the loan system, and do you think that will lead to more players leaving permanently? Because now you can't go out, probably you'll just be at Chelsea, and many of them have said that the youth at underage football is not that good. You don't get proper experience. I think it was Sam Allardyce who said it, like some weeks back,
Yeah.
to bring back the reserve games or something on that note. So do you think like more players will leave Chelsea because and go to Bundesliga actually, because you see a lot of English players or players from England, they're moving to Bundesliga teams and they are performing well, not bad. Do you think that will happen more in the future?
I think a little bit more, yeah. I think that the loan rules give a little bit of leeway. So if you're English, if you're academy trained, then you get to stay at Chelsea until you're 23, and even if you're on loan, so you can sort of like stick around. But I don't think Chelsea really wants players sticking around that long anyway. Once you're 21, your future should be decided at Chelsea. You're either leaving or you're just sort of just stuck in no man's land, which a few loanees are. Danny Drinkwater, you've got to say, he's just waiting to be sold, or Baba Rahman, or we've seen Lucas Piazon complaining about it because Chelsea just ran it like a business and just stuck him on loan for years and years when he knew he had no chance at Chelsea. So yeah, I think that situation will happen less, but there will still be good use of the loan system. I think it will be partly available, but definitely more sales. I think the sales will happen with buyback clauses. So Chelsea might, they sold Jeremy Boga, who's the top academy player at one point. He was like the Hudson Odoi, and he probably should have made it, to be honest. But they sold him for like almost no money, like 4 million, which is crazy for such great talent. But that gave them the opportunity to put an £8 million buyback clause on it, which is really low as well. So he got better in Sassuolo, and he's worth like 30 million now, and Chelsea could have just bought him back. But they agreed like a deal to get rid of the clause and got some extra money out of it. So I think that situation will happen a lot more now. Buyback clauses, sales with buyback clauses to smaller clubs.
And also, like, talking of that, you have Tomori who has gone on loan. Do you see him having any future at the club, or do you think like they want to sell him?
Yeah, I think his future doesn't look that good at the moment at Chelsea, just because Tuchel's in there, and he won't get the chance now to train under him, and all these other boys will get the chance to prove themselves, and he'll miss that chance. So yeah, I mean, his future wasn't good under Lampard either. Lampard hadn't played him really in a Premier League game since February last year. So maybe he's better making a move. Milan's such a great opportunity as well. I think he's got two great options there. He's got either Milan or Chelsea, which should see him, still rise to the top. And the thing is that there's not much space in the Chelsea squad, but they're still producing so many good players that a lot of these guys will go to the top, and you'll see people laughing at Chelsea saying they're dumb. Tariq Lamptey will get to the top. I think that Conor Gallagher could leave, but he'll still get to the top. That's what's going to happen a lot, but they shouldn't be judged too harshly on that. They should be judged positively because they're creating great players. They're making money from the situation, and they go on elsewhere and do very well. You can't play Salah, De Bruyne, Hazard, Juan Mata all in the same team. That's why some of them had to go. And Chelsea need results in the short term. The fans won't wait for player development. They want to win, and that's all Chelsea care about. Chelsea fans want to win. Chelsea's owner wants to win, and luckily Thomas Tuchel also just wants to win as well. So it kind of all works really well.
Definitely, and we are getting to the end, and I have 3 more questions before we wrap up, and these are maybe more personal. And what has been your best moments in your media career till now?
Oh yeah, that was easy. I went to the World Cup in 2018 in Russia. It's just brilliant, just the atmosphere, and we're thinking about COVID and how difficult the situation is, but that was pre-COVID, and it just one of those things that shows you what we're waiting for to come out of lockdown for. You know, people were all together, talking to each other, different cultures, languages, all partying in the street, watching the matches, just a whole nation getting behind big event, and just people being so helpful, so friendly. It was just like such an uplifting time, you know, and to see the other cultures. Football's about cultures. Each country has its own take on football and stuff like that. So it's just really exciting to see. And I was lucky enough to cover like Brazil, Mexico, England, Sweden, Russia, the host nation, and some smaller nations as well who are brilliant, like I don't know, like Serbia and sort of the Slavic nations. It's just so many cool experiences, so many great people I met, and you're meeting journalists from all different countries and stuff, and it's fantastic. So that really made, like, you know, it's a dream come true to go to World Cup. I'd never been before, not even as a fan. So to go and cover it and see loads of games was just unbelievable. Russia was also a fantastic host. So yeah, that's by far my number one moment.
And then moving on to a second last question, have you ever been starstruck in your career?
Yeah, for sure. I used to get it more. I don't really now, but I remember when I first saw Eden Hazard at Chelsea, I was like, wow, this cool guy, you know, what a player. And yeah, then I saw him so often that I didn't get it anymore. I was just like, oh yeah, let's talk to Hazard. You know, it was quite cool, and he's such a nice guy. He's very relaxing, you know. You weren't nervous at all. But yeah, you got Messi, times like that. Messi was definitely another one, starstruck seeing him. But yeah, it doesn't happen too often. I'm not really the kind of guy who gets starstruck, but for the real top people, then you get that. And maybe Francesco Totti, I saw Roma play Chelsea, and he was knocking about, and that was quite cool.
Definitely. So we'll wrap it up with one final question. And of course, you have already given one part in the earlier part of the interview. Like, but if you had to give one piece of advice to anyone who wants to pursue something that you are doing in the media industry, what should they do, or how should they go about?
No, I think if you want to be a writer, just make sure you're the best writer possible. When you've got time as a younger person, don't really get ahead of yourself too much. Just try and work on your craft of writing. That's what I always tell people. Like, just write and write and write, and just write about anything you're interested in, and it will really help you when you get here. I'm not, you know, the best writer in the world. I'm kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. I'm kind of good at video and all sorts of different things, but not amazing at anything. So I'm always learning on the job as well. And yeah, I think just building a following, doing something, you know, making a podcast, that's the biggest thing. Don't just sit there playing computer games and doing nothing. Try and create something. I always say the important thing, you know, what I'll say to my children would be, you know, just create stuff, just make stuff, anything, and make literature, write a poem, make a video, make a YouTube channel, make a Twitter account, make TikTok, do funny things, you know, play with your mates, just mess around, and yeah, eventually you realize you've got all these great skills to take into the media, and a really fresh perspective. You just need to be active and doing things.
Definitely. And you know, like, on that note, Nizar, thank you so much for talking to me, and I wish you all the best for all your media work that you're doing, all the podcasts that you're appearing on, and I hope you continue to entertain the public and everyone, including me, with your articles and what you write. That's amazing. I've been following all your articles, and hope to talk to you again soon. Till then, take care, stay safe. Bye.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Yeah.
Player-wise, it would have to be Steven Gerrard, just because, again, before he became a journalist, you know, he was someone I just admired massively in terms of the absolute complete footballer. I think if you were trying to like make a footballer in a factory, it would be Steven Gerrard, someone who, you know, I think JV Carragher summed it up best once when he said, you know, Steven Gerrard's biggest strength is he doesn't have any weaknesses.
The stadium. I don't see really need to do that, mainly such a big spending. But it's true that it would be a fantastic stadium. That's not bad, but you have to be careful. And mainly at this moment, when we are going to face a very difficult time,